So as part of my PhD, I went to 10 developing countries with an international NGO concerned worldwide to evaluate its disaster risk reduction programs. Over there, I saw a ton of great examples of positive disaster risk reduction work. Today, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about one of Concern's failures. It's community-based risk reduction work in the slums of Freetown, Sierra Leone, focused on flood mitigation. And I think looking at failures and looking at this case, it can really provide some insight into how we should be structuring risk reduction a little bit better. So Concern's work in the slums of Freetown. Freetown, there's a lot of riverine flooding. A lot of it falls under the community-based disaster risk reduction paradigm. It includes education, sensitization, capacity building, committee work, participatory risk assessment, and then very small-scale mitigation interventions at the community level. These are all what you would consider, micro or meso-level interventions. If you look at the risk kind of construct, though, yes, there are a lot of causal factors occurring at the micro level, but there is a lot more kind of meso and macro level causes shaping risk. This includes things like upstream waste mismanagement. A lot of people dump trash in the rivers, environmental degradation upstream, government bans on physical mitigation to discourage settlement in the slums, and then an inability to escape systemic poverty. So these localized pieces of work, they don't do much to affect these macro level structures. Let's see. So why did this happen? Why did Concern choose to focus at the local level? There's quite a few factors that I've identified that influence this level of focus related to the broader kind of political economy of Concern's decision-making processes. This includes the need for practicality and an efficient use of resources by Concern, value for money, a need to discourage dependency. The government expresses this. The government has a need to maintain a voting bloc of viable voters in the slums. Concern has a need to maintain its country presence, and that kind of leads to not rocking the boat when it comes to some of these interventions. He doesn't want to politicize them. Many of the interventions are piecemeal and uncoordinated. This is a network map I've made of some of the causal and consequences of the of the flooding in Freetown. A lot of the interventions, they focus on one element of disaster management. And then the slum dwellers are there because they have a need to survive. So in terms of recommendations, I think that we can reorient the area of disaster management a little bit more to address this sort of focus. There's a coordination issue. There's often a coordination issue. I've used network analysis to identify communities of practice that should maybe be grouped together when you're trying to think about interventions. Approach risk reduction from a rights-based perspective instead of being, a volunteer activity undertaken by NGOs. You should develop a stronger system of rights. And ultimately, there's a very strong need to shift away from focusing on disaster risk reduction, which often pins communities and those at risk as responsible for risk reduction, and focus more on preventing disaster risk creation. So shift our focus from those experiencing the risk to those creating the risks. Thank you.